Hello, hello. Today I have with me Brenda Reiss, and she joins me today to talk about her caretaking for her husband, which ended up in the hard decision to admit him into a memory care center. Brenda has had to work through her grief on so many levels. This journey has taken her deep into her own self-forgiveness and acceptance. As a forgiveness coach, Brenda helps her clients to create a path to endless possibilities by connecting the dots so that they can rewrite their story, stepping more fully into their own amazing power. Brenda, welcome to the show.
Well, I am so glad to be here and share. There's so many of us that go through so many things and we feel like we're alone. So sharing is powerful.
It is extremely powerful, and I 100% agree with you.
Yeah.
100%. So, our listeners know we just dive in. There's nothing shallow here. We don't chit chat. We just
Yeah.
dive right in. We just go deep. As a Pisces, I just go
There
deep.
you go.
That is me.
And I've got
So,
Scorpio in my chart, so I'm there.
so take us to this time where, you know, your husband and you're having to become a caregiver and then moving him into, and all of that, all of the grief that's around that and the losses, and there's so much. So take us there
Yeah.
and how you helped, how you moved through that.
Yeah. So, it was one of those where I finally thought I figured it out relationship wise, right? So I'd been through three divorces already. I'm an expert, right, in relationships now. and, and getting, I was in my 50s, just starting to feel like, oh, gosh, this and this and this happened. Like the men, I kept calling them the same content, different package, right? I kept
Mm,
getting in these relationships that something was familiar and that being emotionally unavailable and more verbally abusive, me holding myself back. At work I could be strong and confident, but at
mm,
home I am like making sure my shoes are in the right place so I don't cause waves. That was the big deal. Don't cause waves.
mm, mm.
Right, which I learned as I started to do the forgiveness work. Gosh, that was learned way back. you know Yet, what I finally figured out was, oh my gosh, after my last marriage, I almost ended up in prison because of a choice that I made. Codependent, people pleasing, and I signed my name to some papers that ended up being illegal, which luckily I didn't know at the time, but I did it out of fear and out of
Mm.
pleasing the ex, who wasn't the ex at the time, and all of a sudden the FBI is knocking on my door. Okay, going, you're looking at 7 to 10 years of prison. We want him,
Wow.
but your name's on the paper. So that was a huge wake up call because what you see on TV is real. The interrogations are real.
Wow.
It was like, and I had to face myself more publicly, the choices and decisions I made. So I
Mm.
finally went, huh. It kind of helps you clean up your act when the FBI is watching you. It's like, okay, I really missed those 2x4s along the way, you know, until this big old house landed on my head. Okay. So this is important because it was like, that was again, another wake up. But this time I listened and I went, what is the common denominator here? Me.
Mm. Mm.
Oh, so I decided to take this journey as I didn't know what was going to happen, right? I didn't know if I was going to prison or not, but I decided I'm going to focus on the outcome that I wanted and I'm going to dive into Brenda. I'm going to see what is this? What's going on? And I just went on this beautiful, really spiritual journey, personal development, but really kind of diving into the
A
patterns and the beliefs.
self-discovery. Yeah.
And in this time so I did this and my ex ended up going to prison, not me, thank God. But in the middle of this was I was finding myself, really understanding what was going on. Now, I meet my current husband. And as I had opened myself up for dating and stuff and noticing that, oh, I'm kind of choosing some different men, very confident and just different, actually adored me. I didn't have to work hard for love. I didn't have
Mm.
to be careful. I didn't have to not cause waves anymore. And it was
So
beautiful.
refreshing. Yeah.
Yeah, because later in life, especially, you're thinking, okay, we have plans now. We're going to travel. Our kids are older. We're a grandparent. We had so many things in common. And then about 3 to 4 years in to the relationship, we got married after a couple years. And it was a few years, and he's older than I am, but very healthy, vital, and just like in better shape than I was. And all of a sudden I noticed some things like, he was forgetful. He would like space out. It was like, what's going on? And he would go to the doctor once a year because the guys don't really want to go to the doctor any
Right.
other time,
Right.
right? So he'd go get his physical, and he's like, I'm just like a 20-year-old, and he was all proud. The blood work. I'm like, yeah, but did you ask about this and this and this, these things? Because I'm kind of
Yeah.
noticing your mobility is different. There was a tremor in his hand. I said, he's like, oh yeah, doctor just said that's fine. Okay. So I am like
Mm.
to the point where I'm watching this happen, and it's starting to really weigh on me because, we know there is something not right here.
Right. Your intuition is telling you.
Oh, big
Yeah.
time. And he's just like, nah, nah, nah. And so finally, it was just this huge. We were trying to get information. I'm doing my research like you do, and I'm thinking,
Hmm.
uh-oh, Parkinson's, or even some sort of neurological disorder is going on, and which can also lead to dementia. Well, one time, I found him. It was like he didn't come home from a bike ride, and I thought, uh-oh. So I go looking for him on his path, and I find him sitting on the side of the road on the little, metal thing on
Hmm.
the guardrail, and he's like banged up, and I'm like, what happened? He goes, well, I just stopped to rest, and I leaned against the guardrail, and I fell down the ravine. The guardrail only came to his knees. He leaned against it, right? Of course. And he was
Yeah.
just dazed and confused. And I thought, okay,
Yeah.
no, 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 we're not doing this anymore. And so when we got home, I'm like, come on, you've got to go to the doctor. We've got to get this figured out. And he's like, quit. Just like, leave me alone. Stop. You are, this is one thing. You are overreacting. Okay,
Mm.
never tell a woman emotionally invested, a little heightened at the time, that she's overreacting. But the beautiful part was that really sparked something in me, because it was like this. I was so trying hard, Brenda, to not have anything be wrong. See, my
Mm.
pattern was still there.
Yeah.
And it was
Yeah.
just more sneaky, right? It was just a little bit more undercover. And and so finally I just like blew up. And I just said, I said, if you're not going to go get help, I can't even be a part of this relationship because I'm
Mm.
trying so hard to fix it. Right. And it was this beautiful thing that happened as I am like blowing up, as I think a lot of women can relate to, because I can't control it. He's not
Mm.
listening. He's not making the phone call, and I can't do it for him. And I heard this beautiful, just this message in my head: Brenda, walk away. You have to take care of you. That's what I
Mm.
heard in this midst of this blow up. Because it was really funny, because I can still see it. We're standing in this little foyer, tile floor. I throw this pin down that was in my hand. The cats scatter, right? Because, I'm like, how dare. And then mid sentence, all of a sudden, this calmness came through me. It was amazing. And it's like my higher self, just like, okay, sweetie,
Yeah.
come on, honey, come on. And it was like just, and then it was like, oh, and I looked at him and I went, I can't help you. I have to help myself.
Yeah.
And I just turned and walked away. And that was the best thing I did, because by doing that, he made the phone call, because I wasn't pushing and pressuring and, so much. I was like, oh, oh, I have some
Mm.
work to do, Brenda. I have some work to do. And it was a beautiful wake up. Does it mean I'm not concerned or didn't, ask? But it was like, oh, there it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have some thoughts. It's
Yes,
reminding me,
please.
yeah, it's reminding me what I've had to do a little bit with some of my adult children, not necessarily with a partner, but with my adult children. And my my third child, his behavior, his choices, he's the one who was into drugs. He's the one who passed away. And I
Mm.
remember as I'm healing and working on myself and working on my things, and it's this, I can't change him. So I totally resonate with how you were feeling in that moment with your husband, this adult, this grown ass man. You
Exactly.
can't change him. You can't make him do anything.
No.
And I knew for me, like with my son, being the nag, being the nagging mom, being that broken record, doing the same thing, like this
Yeah.
isn't working.
Mm.
And when I started working on me, I then had to move into how do I love you well and accept you with the choices that you're making that I don't agree with, that I don't think is right, like, continuing the drugs and all the choices making it. That's such a difficult part of the relationship, right? Is this accepting them where they're at. And he
Yes.
may not, like, because your husband had a choice. I can
Mhm.
make the call and figure out, or I can just let her go do her thing, right?
Right. Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
risk.
It was a risk. But I
Yeah.
really think that this is a really a testament to, how we know, like we're energy beings, right? Kind of, so the
Yeah.
energy of pushing
Yeah.
someone and pushing, of course,
Yes.
they're gonna pull away
Yes.
because but really, it wasn't about him. It
Right.
was about
Absolutely.
me,
Correct.
right? It was about
Correct.
me feeling safe. It was about me not wanting
Yeah.
anything to be wrong. It
Yeah.
was really, and you don't see it until you see it,
Yeah.
and even when I teach it, and even when I practice it, when we're in the middle of it, we need to be reminded of that.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
and then, that helped us get on this journey of discovery of, oh, he doesn't have Parkinson's, but he has a Parkinsonian syndrome. Okay. And so that was helpful. Then we find out, then we get it's like, well, why does he have over a dozen strokes showing up in an MRI in his head?
Mm. Which you're
Right?
probably unaware of, I'm assuming.
Unaware because it didn't present. It doesn't
Mm.
present the way that you normally
Yeah.
see
Yeah.
it. And so it was fascinating. And he had one in front of me, and that was the final kicker. I didn't know what it was because it looks like just dropping in blood sugar. It looks
Mm.
like just like, kind of, hello,
Yeah.
how are you kind of thing,
Yeah.
and then he said, my uterus hurts. And I said, okay, we're going to the doctor. You you don't have one of those unless there's something I don't know about.
That's just
But
funny.
well, it was funny, I mean, it was like it was weird at the time, but now we laugh about it because it was like he doesn't remember it. But that led us to getting the heart monitor, which we found the
Mm.
AFib, and he had been having AFib for years.
Mm. Mm.
And
Mm.
it added to these strokes all over his brain, and then which added to this Parkinson's, and so we found this out, and then we were able to do the testing. So at least now we have an answer
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
what's going on, you know, and then the grieving,
Mm.
right? Because, you're grieving all along, but you're trying to figure this out. We're trying to get
You're
once
not
we
exactly sure what you're grieving yet,
what I'm
right?
grieving. No, and it was fascinating because once we started finding out and they diagnosed him with a mild cognitive, right? It was um it was like then I had this overwhelming like sadness,
Mm.
and it was like I couldn't you can't shake it. You can't, like, you're functioning, but you're not quite here. And I was trying to figure this out, and it was a girlfriend of mine, Susan, she said, "Oh, that sounds like anticipatory grief."
Mm.
And I said, "What?" Because
Yeah.
I didn't know there was all these different types of grief, and at that
Yep.
time. And I'm like, she goes, yeah, the hospice people told me about it when her husband was dying of cancer. They gave her this pamphlet. She goes, that's what it sounds like to me, Brenda. And I went, oh,
Mm,
but see,
mm.
even that helped me go, oh,
Sure, sure. Well, it's so much easier to deal with something if you kind of can have a name for it,
well,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. And so many of us go through this, especially with children with drug abuse or drug
Yep.
use.
Yep.
Like my oldest daughter was the same. So when it's like, oh, that's what we're doing. You're anticipating it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's an ambiguous. Now I learned because I went and got my grief certification because I'm like, let me find out more about this grief because in my forgiveness work, we're grieving all the time. And being able to just be more solid in what kind of grief helps us to process it
Mm-hmm.
once
Mm-hmm.
we don't know, because when we don't understand, it's like it's just this big ocean of pain and emptiness that we don't have anything to grab onto.
Right.
But even having that to grab onto is, oh, there's hope here that I'm not stuck in this ocean by myself,
Right.
right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I could understand it. Now, along with it comes the anger, along with it comes all of these things.
All those emotions.
And
Yes.
the imposter syndrome, because I'm a forgiveness coach, for God's sake. Why am I angrier than hell at my husband for having dementia, which he has no control over? Why am I angry at myself? How come I didn't see it? Why am I angry at, I have no energy? I'm just angry and sad. And, we're
Yeah.
all over
Yeah.
the place. I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but it was so different. I thought, why is this hitting so hard?
Mm.
What? And because, we had gone through, I'd helped my friends with, now my parents died younger. So I didn't have to go through this with parents, but I had gone through it with friends with parents, but no one with
Mm-hmm.
a spouse.
Okay.
And that was really odd. So of course I'm a research girl. So I'm like, okay,
Right.
let
And so
me
like really, so then too, like no support system of someone who's gone
no.
before. Yeah.
No, and I'm trying to
Yeah.
research that, and even then it's very limited. Lots of grief support groups for family, for parents, even for kids.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, there's gotta be. There's gotta be. And so then I start finding these books about, that people have written, like You're Single But Married, right, with dementia, and going through these things. And all they kept saying was, and this is something that I really wanted to bring forward because they say you got to be calm and you've got to really be supportive of the person. Okay, I get it. But what about me? What about the caregiver
Yeah.
whose dreams have been shattered, whose
Yeah.
life, like, till the end of, we finally figured it out. And
Yes.
the love of our lives are just like now they're not even who they used to be. And
Yes.
I'm just supposed to sit back and go, okay, honey, I'm going to be nice. When I'm feeling this ocean, this tumultuous
Yeah.
things. And luckily, I had two friends who had gone through this with their parents. At least they gave me a safe space to say all the things that I needed to say, which weren't pretty, right? But they're
But
also,
they have to come out.
they
Like
have,
they
thank
have to
you.
come out.
They
Yeah.
have to get, and that's another really big point. They have to come out. Don't try to shoulder it alone
Yeah.
or keep it inside because we all know that that blows
Right.
up at the wrong time.
There is huge power in acknowledging how you feel, and our feelings are valid. It's what we feel. That's what makes us human. They are
Yes,
so important, and
they are.
we've done it wrong by repressing and suppressing. This older
They,
generation of us, we've done it wrong.
yes, we have done it wrong. We really have done it wrong. And again, not our fault because that's how we were taught and they were taught.
Right?
And so, yeah, so coming together to this was really having this safe space and also having some compassion for both of us. I remember just yelling at God
Mm,
because that's how it works, right? And just like, how could you do this? And help me have more compassion. I need more compassion for Doug. I need more compassion. you know how we are. And
Yeah.
and this is what people don't talk a whole lot of, the other side of of our work. And I just remember it was so fun because it's been just a few times in my life that this voice, I hear these things. And I'm walking around a labyrinth for Pete's sake, going, okay, let me compassion, give me
Winding
compassion.
yourself up.
Oh yeah. And then all of a sudden I hear her, Brenda, start with yourself.
Mm. Hmm.
I know.
Profound. Profound.
Profound. Profound. And I just went, oh, oh, I see.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was powerful for me.
Yeah.
That gave bring me some ease. And then I was able to notice, oh, I see my abandonment is being triggered from the parents,
Yes.
right? From my
Yeah.
mom. So, and the betrayal, feeling betrayed in different relationships, that was
Yeah.
being triggered. So it's like then it could come through when I could get
Hmm.
some clarity, right? For my calm myself down, just like let myself have the emotion, but ease into it, put it like right
Right.
here so I could look at it. Oh, there's the patterns. There's there. Now I can do something because it is about me. And that's what helped me to be able to soften, find the compassion for
Mm.
myself, find the compassion for him, and be there more. Because I was being there for him, but I was angry,
You were
trying
there
not to
for him,
show
but
it,
not in the right spirit. Right.
not in the right spirit. And
Yeah.
finally it was like, okay, now
Yeah.
I can be there, which helped me then to make the decision that I needed to
Yeah.
make. Because 2 years of going through that and the caregiving and just on edge all the time. He
Yeah.
fell down the stairs. We have stairs and almost drowned in the hot tub because he loves the hot tub. And, he was just escalating fast. And I
Yeah.
remember reaching out to a friend and she goes, who was a RN, she was an oncology RN, and she now helps people with end of life. And
Mm.
she goes, Brenda, maybe it's time because it's either two things. One, when the caregiver can't give anymore. And when the person gets to the point where it's too much for you to handle.
Yeah.
And so that's when that was helpful to have. So having this support,
Yes.
so vital.
Yeah.
So vital.
And yes. So I love that. Would you say before this that it was easy for you to share? That was easy for you to talk about these hard things?
No.
So you learned how to be open. You learned how to share. You learned who was safe to be
Yes.
able to just word vomit it all out and who didn't come back with judgment and
Yes.
opinions and trying to fix you, right? Because it
Well,
does take
yes.
a little bit to find those people.
Oh my gosh. And the family wasn't one of them in my case.
Yes.
The step
Yes.
kids, the step situation. I had my daughter who totally understood one of my daughters, but yeah, the family wasn't safe because they were in their own denial, bless them, right? I
Right.
mean, they were in
Right.
their own, it's like there's no, and they didn't see him very often, so they weren't seeing what I was seeing. So
Right.
then you
Right.
feel really alone, right? And then, yes, I'm being very selective and learning because there was judgment. It's like, well, just, like those books said, just be nice. You can handle this. Just take care of him. That's your duty as a wife. Don't be telling me my duty, right?
I know.
You-
The resistance thing is so interesting because what's come up for me in our conversation twice now, which is now I know I have to say it, is
Okay.
I can get that little bit way too, this resistant, like, don't come at me with that attitude. But
Yes.
if you come at me with a question and slide under the resistance, I'm so much more likely to respond in the way you're looking for. It's fascinating. But, and not many people I don't, just coming at me with resistance is not the way that works for me because I will buck and bulk.
Oh yeah, exactly. And not a lot of people know how to do that, right?
Right.
Right. They
Right.
don't. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
So
thank
I
you.
love that you learned how to share. And so in that process too, so this RN, I'm gonna guess that you also honed your receiving skills
Mm.
through this process of sharing too, right? Because so then her words, it wasn't met with as much resistance because you had opened and softened to receive.
Well, yeah, so I opened out of resistance first. I hit the floor, right,
Yeah.
with a gosh dang it, I can't do this anymore. The bathroom floor moment. It
Yep,
was
yep, yep.
on my knees going, I give. I give because I wasn't realizing, right? We do this. I don't realize how much I'm trying to control and fix and still
Mm,
change
mm,
and trying to figure it out because I'm supposed to figure it out, right?
right.
For some reason, I in my head, I think that I'm all things, like us women do. And it's like, where did I get that from? Right.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it was like
It's
hit
a
the
great
floor
question.
first. It is a great question because we can go on a whole nother thing on that.
Mhm.
But it was like hit the floor and another surrender moment in tears, a blubbly mess, but then again, clarity
Yeah.
in that moment of it, just in that split moment of it's like, okay. And that's when I hit the floor and said, okay, I give. Within 2 days, I met two people who do caregiving,
Mm,
who you could hire. And
yep.
because I thought I had to do it myself, I thought that there was something. And then that led to, oh, there are lots of services out there, seniors helping seniors and different things that it's like, I wasn't even open to seeing. I hadn't even seen it. And that way, so it started, that's what helped my receiving. First, my surrender,
Mm, mm.
even through like, pain and that sweet surrender. And then just that crack, just when we have that crack, just give yourself a crack of
Yes.
an opening. And and then I was able to receive, and that's what helped me the most, giving myself just a little bit of space so I could breathe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you also gave yourself a little bit of compassion, which is what you were asking God
Exactly.
for. Right.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's what helped me to then go,
Yeah.
oh, I
Yeah.
see. I see so much clearer. And meanwhile, and then being really big, because before that, it's like you can't share it. It's like you're stuck in this place, in this cave, and only with a couple people, which was fine. But I
Yep.
did have a couple people that were safe.
Yes. Yeah. And that's like gold. Like if you find those people, those are the ones you hold on to because they're gold.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if we this might be a hard one because there's probably many, but what would you say was the biggest thing that you had to it's going to be a two-part question. What did you first have to accept
Mhm.
through all this, and how did that empower you?
I love those. So I first had to accept that I'm not meant to do it alone.
Mm,
I'm not everything to everyone, that I needed to accept the fact that I needed help and support, that receiving isn't a weakness, it's a strength.
yeah.
I needed to accept the fact that I am who I am and that I really needed to forgive myself for having the feelings and the emotions and the
Yeah.
all the things that I felt I was failing at.
Mm,
And for me, though, acceptance comes first. I got to accept my situation. I couldn't change it, couldn't fix it, make it different.
yes.
And then I got to accept me, my flaws and all, that I'm not meant to, right?
Hmm,
And
hmm.
within this acceptance and what I'm calling, now I know a lot of people don't like the word surrender, but to me, I needed that word. I needed that feeling so that I could get through my resistance.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's always worked for me because it was in that place and then accepting of the help. being willing to be vulnerable and transparent with just a few people at first,
Yeah.
that that was empowering to me. And that's
Yes.
what helped me gain the confidence. And then I started seeing, then it started opening up to me. Like one woman came to me and said, "Hey, thank you for sharing your story." Because I would just do it in a small networking group.
Yep.
She said, "Thank you, because I think my husband's starting this dementia thing and I don't
Mm,
know what to do." One
I
person.
have goosebumps.
I know,
Yeah.
I just did too. And it's like, oh, it does help, right? It does.
I think that would be like one of the things that I wish that women specifically would just the biggest lesson for all women.
Mm,
Sharing your story heals not only
yeah.
you, but others. And it
Yes.
starts and opens this fountain that you cannot even imagine
Hmm.
within you and within others. Like it, yeah.
Yeah. And then got to the point where, and I even shared this story in a book, in a collaborative book, Being Brave, that just came out last December. And so, because it was like just, leaning,
Hmm.
like last year, we placed him into memory care last year. And I was thinking, okay, yay, I can get back into my business and I can go do this and I'm going to have so much energy. Oh no. Oh no.
Oh, your body is still working through the grief of
Oh
all
my
that you've
God.
just been through. And now you have this, even though he's gone, there is still a lot that's still happening.
Oh, there's a lot. So not only
Yeah.
like the nervous system, but now my body can feel safe enough to grieve, which doesn't
Yeah.
hit you for a while, right?
Right.
And then you
Right.
have that piece. And then you have restoration, right? Where you've got to take the time. So reparate, you're repairing and then
Yes.
you're
Yeah.
restoring yourself. Then
Yes.
there's, oh, what he used to do, I have to do,
This
right?
taking on the roles. Yeah.
Taking on the roles and, the house, of the bill, of everything. And there's no partner there. There's another grief
Yeah,
of,
because you're
wow,
alone. And again, too, I also see the loss of the illusion. Like we planned this life together. Like that comes back up again.
yes, it does. It comes back up again. And then you're living two lives. So now, even though he's in memory care, I'm still primary caregiver.
Yeah.
So, like recently, he had another fall, and this time he his head pretty hard. So there was this, 4 days of him being confused and not knowing where he was, and I was the only one that could calm him down,
Mm,
right? So there's this piece too of how
yeah.
does this fit into my life now? Because I want to do things,
Yeah.
yet there's also this responsibility there. So it's
Yeah.
a constant juggling of where am I? So I'm still in it. I'm on the other side of the waves of the grief, like you understand.
Yep.
And so now I'm able to look at it more clearly, and I'm able to allow, it's like those grief bubbles come up, or the
Hmm.
little waves. Sometimes I'm smacked and
Yeah.
sometimes I'm just bubbled. Sometimes some days I just look out the window and just go, okay, I feel a little sad today. That's all right.
Yeah.
Or I see a couple that's holding hands. It's like, oh, and
Yep.
that's okay too.
Yep.
And because if we allow the emotion, as you and I know, and probably most of your audience, if we allow it, it's meant to move through within a couple minutes
Right.
if we don't attach a story to it
Right. Right. Or judge it.
or judge it. We're good at that.
Yes. 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 I'm just sitting in all of it. Like, yeah, it's just all kind of sitting and running through me like I'm feeling it for you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, we can relate to. A lot of us women can. If it's not my exact story, it is something like it, like you with
Or
your
there's pieces of,
or
right? So
pieces.
like pieces of that,
Yes.
that
Yeah.
this is a familiar, I may not have had the spouse or whatever, but there are pieces of that are familiar. There are pieces of that, oh, I can relate to that. So yeah. Yeah. again, why it's so important what I say that we share our shit, right? Like we just
Yep,
need to share our shit
we
because
do.
other people are going through it too. And um, again, what you've said so succinctly, you realized you're not alone. You're not alone.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even though, I was talking about it, doing it until you feel it, I think most of us are like that. Is like that's how
Yeah.
we learn. Is like
Yeah.
when I can really embody it, that's what made a huge difference. But it starts here with the head. It starts allowing.
Right.
We got to
Right.
allow before we can open.
Yes. Absolutely. Yes. Yes. So, Brenda, what would you say has been your biggest lesson? And this
Mm,
could be for your whole life. Like, I mean, this
yeah.
could be where you are now, your biggest lesson.
What has been coming to mind lately is I had the power all along. Clicking of the heels, right? Dorothy, the red
Yeah.
shoes, click, click. It was like, that's what has come to me so strongly because most of my story with my husband is actually an example of the patterns in my life, right? Because relationships are for growth and healing. And so that one I know for fact. So things will show up in them. And what I realized was, oh, where I was giving away my power, where I was really going for external validation, where
Mm,
I was not trusting Brenda. And when I was, because I wasn't trusting it, I was just trying to do it, push through, and I can,
yeah.
handle this instead of trusting the fact of, no, sweetie, you're not meant to handle this alone. No, honey, this is where we need some help. Yes, you need to fulfill yourself so that you can give more to what you need to give. But that's not your strength. Let's bring in some people right over here so that you
Mm-hmm.
can give yourself where it's needed the most.
Mm, mm. That's powerful.
And that's where the power is. The power is, I had the power all along. I just didn't see it.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And this is true for every single one of us, man or woman. The power is
Yeah.
already within us.
Yep. Yeah.
It's already within us. Each
It
one of
is.
us has it, whether we're using it or not, or tuned into it or not, right? That's the unwinding, the unraveling, the
Yeah.
inner work that we have to do.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
it's within us.
It is within us. It's just recognizing it, allowing it,
Yeah.
accepting it,
All
and
the, yeah,
then doing
surrendering.
something with it, right?
Yeah.
And then trusting it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
Mhm.
So, mind, body, soul mastery.
Yes.
We're souls here having this human experience. This human experience is feelings, emotions, the relationships, all those things, right? And once we usually, you had your moment where you realize, that something's got to change. Where's the compassion for you, right? Like that was your moment, right?
Yes.
So it's this, how do we get this, what I call this mind, body, soul mastery, this partnership, working together in alignment, this oneness that we really are, if we look at ourselves as a whole spiritual being,
Yes.
oneness is what we are. But as
Yes.
humans, we don't remember that we're one. We don't
Yeah.
remember, right? So that's the human experience. When you started your journey, which one was harder for you to master and get in line and get working together as one, mind, body, or soul?
I love that. I think it was the mind. Because, I had examples of my soul all along, right? The little intuitive hits, the things I ignored, it was there.
So you recognized them, but you ignored them.
I recognized them, but I ignored
Okay.
them. It was the monkey mind.
Yep.
It was the monkey mind that I was trained, programmed, taught. This was the most important piece.
Mm,
Plus, in my experience, like we all experience, I didn't trust the body.
yeah.
Right? Because that held all those repressed and suppressed emotions. So something was chaotic here. So I had to do this. So, what was my biggest example, experience, journey, lesson was learning to really blend the
Mm,
mind body, because when I did that, my soul was already there. She
I
came in
love that
pretty strong.
blend. I
Yeah,
love that
blend.
visual.
Well, it was a blend because it's not going from the head to the heart, it's
Right,
blending because I need
right.
both. I'm human. I need
Yeah,
both, you know?
yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah, that's a
Mm,
great question.
so good, so good. So we kind of talked about this already, but life is messy. You're still primary caregiver. You're still having to, work through this grief that as it comes up, still having to the situations with your husband in the memory care facility, right? Like that still your responsibility and all that. Like, so there's just still a lot happening, right? As you're still grieving and healing and growing, right? Like this is the epitome of the human experience, isn't it?
Mm. It is. It
How do
is.
you help yourself now move through when the challenges and things come? Because it was different than what you did. So how do
Mm.
you help yourself move through now?
Yeah. So now, by allowing myself the compassion with myself, right? So now I notice things sooner. So
Mm,
I catch them sooner. I can catch when I am starting to get anxious and I need to do I do this movement of moving forward of I'm going to fix it. I'm going to help,
mm,
right? So recently I was on a trip. When he fell, I was gone, 1,500 miles away, and I had got to trust that he was in good hands.
yeah,
I did
yeah.
cut my trip short, so I made a decision based on his confusion, but I didn't jump.
Mm,
I thought, where I would before.
yep,
And then it was like, and then I hand it over, right? For me, I do prayer. For me, it's angels, God, universe, it's
yep,
it's all there. So it's like,
yep,
okay, I know he's in your hands. Guide me to the best that I can so I can trust myself. And that's what I did. I got to visit with a friend and it's like, okay, yep, I'm going to cut it short and I'm going to go home early. But I did it because I wanted to, not because I had to. Or
yeah.
before I didn't have a choice. It was like a reaction. Now it was a response.
Mm. And that's
And
a
then,
beautiful place to
oh
be
my
able to
gosh,
respond.
it's
Yeah.
so freeing. It is freeing.
Mm-hmm.
And then now even making the choice, like is a family's like, okay, at first, are you visiting every day? And it's like that got to be I couldn't take care of myself by visiting every day. I made the choice and decision to go, nope, every other day or every 2 days. I will
Yeah.
talk to you by phone, but other than that, I need time for me. That was another thing. It goes against the grain, but that's how I take care of myself today.
Yeah.
And I am confident. It's like learning to be fiercely in love with myself.
Mm, mm,
That's been my whole goal and journey is like I want to be so fiercely in love that I take care of myself just as much as I take care of those around me.
mm.
And that's what I'm doing with this compassion and
Yeah.
with responding versus
Yep.
reacting. And
Yep.
then allowing myself that space when I do feel like I'm overwhelmed to be able to scream into the pillow, hit the bed with a tennis racket, because that's my favorite thing to do, and get the energy out, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then talk to a trusted friend.
Yeah. Oh, such wisdom
Mm,
in all you just said. Thank you. Thank you.
thanks for asking.
Brenda, this has been a really good conversation. I so appreciate that you could just go deep and be honest and vulnerable and authentic. And I so appreciate that. Thank you.
Mm. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for
Yes.
providing this space. I think that's a the container that we walk into is
Mm.
because of you. And that
Uh,
provides and allows for the
yeah.
transparency and the vulnerability. I mean, it's a big key piece of it. So thank you for providing this for your audience and for all of your guests.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm going to let you have the last word. What would you want our guests to take away from this conversation today?
Oh,
Because
you
there's been a
know,
lot.
yeah, there's been a lot. There's been a lot. And I think the biggest one is that do take the small steps to be able to accept yourself,
Mm.
to be able to, because we can't loving yourself is a big thing. It's too big. And so if I can just accept myself, and I start with awareness. I started with, where am I noticing, right? And so I
Hmm.
encourage people, be aware of, what are you saying to yourself? How are you feeling? What are you doing? Just start there. And
Hmm.
then learning to go, okay, it's not my fault. It's okay. And just be
Yeah.
willing to be willing to be willing. That's what I tell my clients. Be willing to be
Yeah.
willing to be willing to look at yourself just a little bit differently, bringing in some kindness, because there's a lot going
Compassion.
on,
Yeah.
and
And
compassion,
compassion.
right?
Grace.
Just
Yeah.
bring in
Yeah.
that. And I say that word a lot too, grace. Give yourself grace.
Yeah.
Start with kindness, which turns into compassion.
Yeah.
And then just do that. And then find at least one or two other people that feel the same, where you can confide, or a
Mm.
therapist if that's what somebody wants. But for me, I started with a friend even, and to where you can confide and
Yes.
be the real you, and be able to say, I hate my life, or I hate this, or I hate that. Be real, be human,
Yes.
because there's time
Yes.
later to kind of go, okay, let's bring in the spiritual side now.
Right. Well, and again, too, but sometimes, like we said earlier, sometimes we just have to get it out
You
so that
have
it
to.
can stop ruminating. Like
Thank you.
sometimes
Yes.
just speaking it, just
Yes.
speaking it, saying the shit that we got to say,
That's it.
diffuses what is
Yes.
going on within us. There's
Yes.
so much power in that.
Well, there is, and it's proven now. Neuroscience is even proving that, like, I ended up with a back fusion, neck fusion, and a brain tumor within a
Mm.
year and a half of each, because I was holding it all inside.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I really feel that. I'm not blaming myself, but I'm just like, oh, my body was doing such a good job until it couldn't anymore.
Yes. Yes.
Right? And it's
Yes.
true.
Yes.
It's true. And I've had so many people tell me that, Brenda, I feel better after doing this work, right? Getting the anger out, getting the sadness and the grief out
Yep. Yep.
makes
Yep.
a difference. So I encourage people to find a soft place to land there, and just be,
Mm.
it's like, you don't have to yell at God to have compassion for yourself. You can
Or you
actually just,
can if you need to.
or you can. I highly encourage it.
He
It's
can
kind of,
take it.
he can
He
take
can
it.
take it.
Oh
He
my God.
knows. He already knows. Just be honest.
I know, he sits there and goes, it's about time. That's the way I figured it. He's like, thank goodness. It's
Yes.
about time, Brenda. It's about time.
Yes. No, I'm the same. I just, your takeaway, I wanted succinct because I loved it.
Oh,
Just go back to the first things you said, the small steps to accept myself, because sometimes loving myself is too big.
yeah.
That was huge because you said it earlier, accept myself, flaws and all. And
Yes.
that really is that first small step. If you, for any of this, anyone listening who really haven't taken the opportunity or made the decision to lean into what's going on and looking at their patterns and behaviors and different things, that small step to
Yes.
look in, lean in, and accept this is how it is right now. This is how it is. You may not like it.
Right.
It doesn't have to stay that way,
No.
but it
And I always
starts
say
with
oh, go ahead.
accepting.
It
No,
does.
yeah,
Because, no, accepting, because acceptance does not mean agreement,
right,
right?
right.
Yeah.
Yes,
And I keep reminding myself, Brenda, accept. I don't have to agree with it, but I'm accepting it.
yeah,
Then it brings my power back. It's no longer being pushed out there. Then I can bring it back. If I'm in acceptance, now I have more choice,
yeah.
right?
I like that. Acceptance is not an
It's not a,
agreement.
yeah, it's
I
not.
can't say I've heard that before, but it
Okay.
makes a lot of sense to me. Yeah. So my body's saying, "Yep, that's true for you."
Yeah, there
Yeah,
you go. I know that it
yeah,
rings so true for me when I was told that years ago. Brenda, acceptance does not mean agreement. And
yeah,
it was like, and at first, you're wanting to fight it, but it's like, there's freedom in that.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that's what got taught to me through this experience.
yeah. Mm, mm, mm.
Oh,
So much goodness here. So much goodness here. Thank you so much, Brenda, for joining me,
mm,
and much love and compassion to you as you continue to walk this journey and figure this out, this new life
yes, thank
that's kind of happening to you.
Yeah,
and how
it is.
you adapt, right?
Yeah. Thank you. My
You're
pleasure to
welcome.
be with you.